Write, paint, dance, and sing to spread the word.
Hello, I'm Reva Nelson, writer and author of 4 books, and I'm really pleased today to introduce Shane Joseph, who many of you probably already know. He is the author of several books and the publisher of Blue Denim Press, and also a sponsor of the NFOTA Festival, the Northumberland Festival of the Arts, which is from September 13th to the 22nd. Shane, welcome. I have some questions for you, and I know that you're going to talk about things that are important to you connected to the arts, but let's start with something I'd like to know from you, which is, why do you think the arts are important to people?
Well, thank you first for inviting me. And it's nice to be, for a change, on the other side of the camera, where the questions are being asked of me, as opposed to me asking those questions. So this question is one I've actually asked a lot of people. So I think it's my turn now. What does art mean to people in this county? Well, I think art is a way of summing up the randomness of life and presenting it in a form that is somewhat coherent, that makes meaning out of the random events that take place. And so whatever the form, whether it's painting or theater or music or literature, which I'm involved in, we try to take the randomness out, put it into some kind of meaning, and present it back. And I think it's important for people to read life in that way, because it gives a sense of purpose of why we live, what we have done, why we go through the surprises that come at us. And so I think that's important. It gives a balance to the randomness of life. And that's how I've always looked at it.
I think that I certainly agree with you. And I was thinking as you were speaking that sometimes art brings comfort to people. And some people don't feel any connection to art at all, but often it can be disturbing. It stirs things up. So what do you say to that kind of art, which is sometimes a little bit in your books as well, in your novels? There's often, perhaps it's a reflection of some of the things you've seen, but what about the art that's not comforting, which serves a good purpose, but often is disturbing and stimulating?
Yes, now I said to explain the randomness of life. I didn't say comfort. And you're right. Most of my books tend to focus on the darker side of life. That's a side that a lot of us tend to shy away from, especially out in Northumberland County, which has a very high proportion of seniors who have moved here after having lived full lives, and they're probably looking for a little bit of peace and a little bit of serenity from the madness they've come from. And there is me stoking up the madness again. So I can understand why sometimes people are uncomfortable with that. But I like to present art from both sides, from the good and the bad, because I believe good and evil resides in all of us. And it is better to try and understand the other side, the darker side, because that can reveal the good in all of us. And so I try to approach redemption from the side of the sinner rather than the saved.
I think you do that very well, actually, and in a very interesting manner. Now, you're a sponsor of NFOTA, and the festival will encompass many different kinds of art. Why did you feel it was important to be a sponsor of the festival? And maybe you could say a bit more about the festival also.
Yes, I totally believe in this festival, at the concept of this festival. We've been trying to do something like this for a very, very long time. We started back in, I believe, 2015, where we were on the street, on Main Street, parading our books and trying to get people interested in literature. Then we tried to go into concert halls and present there. We tried libraries, and we couldn't really collect all the various groups, arts groups that were in the Coburg and Northumberland County area that were somewhat diffused in their message. We saw places like Stratford and places like Niagara, who have packaged their complete offerings, and they are very forceful in that message. And here we were scattered. So the idea to bring all the arts groups together was a good one. It was a question of the energy and the planning and the courage to do that. And I think our first steps towards the festival took place in 2017, where we had a 2-day festival in a church, and that went off okay. So that gave us some confidence to go and do a 3-day festival 2 years later in the same church, and that was extremely successful. We actually filled the place, and we couldn't really. Our capacity was our limitation. So then we planned this mammoth festival. We thought, okay, let's get everybody in together. Let's get theater, let's get film, let's get music, let's get the poets, the writers, the painters, the craftspeople, and they were scattered all over the county.
Sorry.
And then came the pandemic. And of course, that put a pause on things. But we were, pretty undaunted and said, okay, let's just use this time to plan a little bit more, to promote a little bit more and get the message out that we were trying to do this. So we spent 2 years, the 2 pandemic years, to try and promote the 2022 festival. And I think that was time well spent, because we mounted, I think, about 42 events over
that
3
festival
weeks.
Encompassed the county, brought in a lot of people from all over the county, not just Coburg and Port Hope, and was very successful.
Yes, I know. And so, but then of course it exhausted all of us because we realized this was a bit too much. And so what we've done for this coming festival is to have a look at what we did. And now we have data. In the past, we were shooting blind. So now we have data, and we picked the events that were the most successful, that we know we have an audience for. And we have pruned down the list to about 27 events, and it's running over 2 weekends and a week in the middle. So hopefully this time we will sell the same amount of tickets or more, but put less effort into so many events and just focus them down onto a narrow subset. So that's the plan. And I think that hopefully with these festivals happening every 2 years, we will be able to establish a brand for Northumberland as a center for the arts, just as there are these other centers around Ontario, and attract people from the outside and attract people who are inside the county who are engaged in artistic activities to join us and showcase themselves under a much larger umbrella. So that's the idea, and I totally believe in it, and I'm totally committed to it.
Well, I think that people now know what NFOTA is. At first they didn't, Northumberland Festival of the Arts, and they have many different points to enter from, be it visual arts or drama or poetry, which is very big in this county, and the written word and all kinds of different activities, dance. It's a fabulous festival. For the arts generally, 2 things. One is some people still think they have to be an artist to appreciate the arts, so they don't know anything about it. So they have some trepidation to even attend something, which I never quite understand. But I think the one-on-one outreach and perhaps people seeing this video will help for people to feel more open to having these experiences. And the other question I have is, perhaps some suspicion people have of the arts that, oh, you're just trying to get government grants. And can the arts be self-sustaining? So those are 2 different questions, but I think they're quite related to people's either hesitancy or sometimes even a negativity toward the arts, which of course I don't feel, but some do.
So let me try and answer both those questions. The first one first, which is accessibility and how difficult or daunting are these festivals? They're not really, because the artists are drawn from the local area. They're not into a lot of abstraction. A lot of the art is accessible, very relatable to people's lives. The fees to enter these events are very reasonable. I don't think there's anything more than $40. Most of them are around $20, $25. Right? And you can't get that in the big cities or the bigger centers. So I think that's one thing that should allay people's fears. And the second question, now I'm forgetting the second question a little bit.
About the arts, whether they can be
Oh,
self-sustaining.
yes.
And do
Yes.
people have some resentment sometimes if they hear about grants going to the arts?
Yes. I'm, as a publisher, I have been operating for the last 14 years grantless. Okay, so I've been running on my own resources. Yeah, it does narrow how far I can reach, but I have been doing it on my own. And I will probably continue to do it on my own because I know that the grant system is quite overburdened right now. Everyone's stretching their hands out for help. And those who come later, like myself, have to stand at the door. So I have managed to work my business model in such a way that I'm not reliant on the arts funding. And at the same time, I'm not using my own resources as a kind of a conduit to do that sponsorship. I make sure that the books I publish will pay for themselves. But not every artistic activity can do that. I realize, and some kind of appreciation from either corporations or government. And I'm not saying it has to always be government. Corporations also get the benefit of art. It sustains communities and therefore sustains their customer bases. It sustains their employees, and it shows them as good citizens. So this message is out to corporations as well. I'm a corporation, Blue Denim Press, and I'm supporting this festival because I believe it helps this community. So I think that there's yes, it's very difficult for the arts, especially in Canada and especially in small communities like Northumberland County, to be self-sustaining purely on ticket sales or book sales or whatever other things we sell as part of the event. It's difficult to sustain ourselves on that. So we need some kind of a help, but also with the hope that the help is not just a handout, it's an exchange. There is some value, it's intangible value that these corporations and governments will get for funding us. So that's how I see this thing. And I think that, yes, some kind of sponsorship, donation, propping up, if you will, while we go at it is justified.
Mm-hmm. I think also something people may not realize when they do come from the big city, be it in this area, be it Ottawa or Montreal or Toronto, just how much talent we have in the county. I mean, some of it is people who've lived here all their lives. Some of it is, I call it the imports, but so many people from Toronto and Montreal are moving to Cobourg and area, the county, because they see just how beautiful it is. But the other thing I noticed too is when you go to an event here, be it a music event or book reading or poetry reading, you are close to what's going on. You are not sitting, 50 rows back where you see the person is an inch high. You are maybe 5 or 6 rows from the action. And I think that's very exciting and that's very unique to the arts that we have here. And the quality and high level of the arts here is quite astounding. I was surprised when I came to hear some music and hear some of the poetry readings, and everyone is accessible, and you're very close to the artists, and there are no crowds. You're not lining up to see the Mona Lisa, but the art is fantastic in this county.
Yeah. No, and I will say two things here. One is there's not a lot of places where you can walk down to have dinner, or take your car down to have dinner, park for free, go into a concert hall like Victoria Hall, watch a concert for about $30 or $40, and be home 10 minutes later, right? I mean, that doesn't exist in most places, and we have that privilege still available. The second thing I would say is a lot of people underestimate the quality of the art that's been produced here because they think there's just a bunch of old people who are trying to create art for themselves. I look at it differently because I get a lot of submissions and I see a lot of manuscripts that come from what they call old people. And I look at it and say, these people are bringing in a lot of experience, and they have the time. They're not raising families or building careers. They have retired here and they are now taking the pause to look back on their lives and create art out of it. And that's not a luxury that you get when you live in the big cities and you're working, 9 to 9 at night, and you're running around trying to raise a small family, or you're trying to climb the corporate ladder. There is no time for that. So there is a lot of good stuff being produced by people who have now had the time to think, and don't have those financial pressures that typical starving artists in garrets have. So I think the quality of the art being produced by these types, as they call them, is pretty good, and it's worth sampling.
I think it's very good, and there's just so much talent, and it's not a disappointment ever. I can't believe I've been here 8 years now, and people are either, some of them having a second or third career in the arts, or there's some people who have moved here who are already established and big names who are now accessible to us because they're living in the county.
Yes,
That's
true.
Is there anything in particular about the upcoming festival that you are excited about? Is there something you'd like to share about the festival that we can look forward to?
Well, there's two things that always excite me. If I have a book coming out during the festival, one of my own, that's great, because it does add value. And I do have one of my latest novel coming out. And so that's one. And the second one is, of course, the fact that we do an anthology every 2 years, and we time it to come out during the time of the festival. And that anthology is going to be the 6th in the Hill Spirit series. I think this year we have the most number of contributors, far more than in the last few years. So that shows that the concept of a collective offering of one's writings to the community is catching on. And in fact, this time we've had to choose rather strictly in terms of which ones we would include and which ones we have to exclude, because we have also capacity limitations. But that's a good sign. I think it's a good sign that there's a lot more art being created. So those two are my kind of high points. Of course, I'm looking forward to watching all the events. I go to quite a number of them during the festival. But yes, to have one's own art on display, at a time like this is great.
I think I'm glad you mentioned the Hill Spirits anthology, because I do think that it has become better each year as well. That I'm just amazed at the quality of it, and it already was good, the first one I saw, but each one seems to be stronger and have submissions that are richer and deeper and just well written. It's a wonderful anthology, and it represents all of us, which is great.
I remember when we first started, there was quite a number. We had about 25 contributors, and now I think we're double that number. Many of them had not published anything anywhere. I think maybe there were 2 published authors in the group. But I've seen over the years, many of the authors who've been in the anthology go on to publish their own work. And I'd like to think that, we gave them a shot in the arm, some confidence to come out there and to read in public and to see their book in print, and not just once, but, multiple times, and that then spurred them to go on to write their own and publish their full-length work. And that, to me, is almost like this Northumberland Festival of the Arts in a minuscule sort of way, when relating it to literature in this county. We've fostered the artists over these last 12, 15 years. I think we've been publishing the anthology, and we've seen them grow. And that's what I'd like to see in all the aspects of the arts, the painting and the theater and the poets and so on, so that we provide these avenues and these vehicles for them to get their work out and then see them blossom.
I think that's true, and I think everyone appreciates it. You're sounding like a proud grandpa at this point of your little chicklets in the county, who are some of them older than you.
That's fine.
We can be referred to as chicklets. Well, Shane, I think that you have helped the arts in our county with your activities. You're helping to promote the writers and the different arts activities. And your sponsorship is very integral to the festival as it is for the other sponsors. And we all look forward to a fantastic Festival of the Arts and FOTA, September 13th to the 22nd of this year. Thank you for
Yes.
your interview.
Thank you, and I'm looking forward to the festival too.
Good.
Thank you.
We'll write, paint, dance, and sing to spread the word.
Sing it,
Shout it,
play it, dance it,
paint it,
say it,
choreographed or off the cuff. Orchestrated works of art, solo endeavors. We'll write, paint, dance, and sing to spread the word. We'll write, paint, dance, and sing to spread the word.